Hello everyone, this is Dimitri from Netsos Games and welcome back to part 9 of our ongoing devlog series where we're porting our Unity game Hate Me Not over to the Godot engine, and we're using for that Godot 3.5.2 because web exports are not yet possible. But if you've seen the last video, then you know that we're a good way to reaching that point, since Godot is finally supporting Android exports and iOS exports in Godot 4 point something something. Anyways, even though we're not using yet Godot 4, we have managed to port over most of the functionality from the Unity version to the Godot version, and there's only the little bit of the polishing left to be done so that we can do a new update to our itch.io page, which we would be linking in the description if you want to check out the current build of the game, which is still running in Unity. One of the things we did this week was implement the audio manager. It now works perfectly. The functions remain the same as we had before, but under the hood the audio manager looks much different and the way that it functions is way different than before. I will show you a comparison of the Unity version we had and the Godot version we had. We also started finalizing and porting the weapons, so now we have 2 weapons finished with primary and secondary functions, and my girlfriend also made a better particle system for the flamethrower, and it looks much better than before. In any case, let's get started with topic number 1. If you're the same as us and always used Bracke's audio manager up until now, then yeah, this is gonna look very familiar to you. We basically have been using the audio manager from Bracke's tutorial ever since we started doing the Unity development. It is so convenient and easy to just drag and drop your sound effects here, just give them a name, and then from anywhere using a singleton instance you can call them. And of course this itself could also be improved. For example, you could use addressable assets and stuff like that, but it has been working so great up until now that we never really required something more than what already was existing here. There's only one thing though that made this thing a little bit annoying to work with, and sometimes was making me feel like I don't want to work with the audio yet, and is most likely why we postponed audio for the very last part of the porting. And that's basically you have to find the sound effects you want to use, name them appropriately, move them into Unity, and then you need to find the audio manager and move the things again, and then give them again a name. And that is like the same step, kind of. And I was thinking, wouldn't it be somehow possible to just skip this one part of moving the things from the already existing assets, project folder, whatever, into a secondary object that is required for the loading? And that's what we did exactly with Godot. So what I did was create a sound effects folder under my audio. And then when the audio manager is instantiated for the first time, I find all of the sound effects by opening a directory depending on the path I'm passing from the UI, and then starting to iterate over each of the things that are inside of the directory. And whenever it finds a .wav file or a .mp3 file, then it registers this sound effect. And what registering looks like in our case is we create an audio stream player node, we add this as a child of the audio manager, and we give it an ID because why not? And then, depending on whether this is a .wav file or .mp3 file, we create an audio stream sample or an audio stream mp3 with the loaded file. And then we add this to a dictionary where the key is the first part of the file name, and the audio stream player is the value of the dictionary. And basically this allows us later to just give the ID, which is basically the file name before the ending, and then if the instance is not muted, and if the string is not empty, and if the key exists, we can just play the sound effect. And how this looks like then in the end, for example, if I go to the dashing here, I just do audio manager.play and I say dash. And then the dash sound effect is playing, and it uses this name, this part of the name, to just match it to what I'm calling as the audio manager.play something. So this is basically the same Bracke's audio manager, just with the difference that you don't need to manually map the sound effects. You can just simply load them from the folder and then just call the first part of the name and it immediately plays the sound effect. And unfortunately, this currently does not allow us to do this directional sound effect so that the player would know, for example, where the hit is coming from, where the enemy spawned or stuff like that. But as a start, this is great, and all of the improvements we can still do on top of that later. One tip I can give you in case your audio files are not playing. So, while we were adding the previously used sound effects from Unity over to Godot, we realized that some sound effects from specific asset packs we had bought before did not work. And it was a very weird bug. Basically, you would see here that the sound effect was 0 seconds. And when you were pressing play, you couldn't hear anything. Even when playing the game and launching an audio through the audio manager we implemented, nothing was hearable for some of the assets. And this was very weird. We tried converting them to MP3 and that worked. So probably something in the original file was somehow not being able to be parsed inside of Godot. And what we did there, because we still wanted to use the .wav files, because when you import them you have a few more options compared to the MP3 one. So what we did was open the sound effect in VLC Media Player, right click, save. And I'm not sure if this is 100% the best performance-wise option here, but we chose the profile audio CD, then went here to the settings and switched over the encapsulation to WAV, clicked on save, and then we went to browse here, gave it a temporary new name, and clicked save, and then the audio was converted somehow to a readable format for Godot, and everything was working again. You could again press play and listen to the sounds, and everything was working as intended. So in case you're gonna encounter the same issues as us, you can try out this method and hopefully this is gonna fix your importing of audio issues. That was it for the audio manager. Now we have the improvements for the weapons, and there's basically two kinds of improvements we did. Number one, we implemented right-click abilities for two of the weapons. So with the basic weapon, you can right-click to start charging, and you see the different particle effect when it's finished charging, and then when releasing the trigger, it shoots a bigger bullet, which is instant killing most of the mobs here. Starting to charge, finish charging, and then shooting, and instant. So the katana used to simply hit, but now it hits and it also makes a small dash towards that direction. So every slash is feeling a little bit more connected, let's say. It feels a little bit more realistic that you are attacking and moving in the direction that you're attacking. So let's hit a few enemies like that. And then we have the right click, which is a long dash, and it can be even stacked onto the different kind of abilities you might have, which also dash. So I could, in theory, dash with my Q and then dash again with my right click. And if you remember for the last devlog, we created a custom trail renderer to draw this kind of like dashing line here. And this is also working now if you're using it in combination with the katana's dash, which is just a right click attack here. And it feels very satisfying to right click and dash through the enemies and deal the damage. We're gonna still have to fine tune the cooldown and the damage each of these abilities do, but for the moment they look quite fun to just play around with, even if they're not 100% balanced. So this is what the old flamethrower used to look like. And the sprites are the same ones that are used in the default weapon. And now we're gonna switch over to the new version, and this one looks much better. The flames here are definitely filling up the space, and there's potential to make this even better by having a custom scale curve. We can also add a transparency curve, which in the beginning and end have a little bit of transparency so that the flames fade in nicely into the background as they spawn or as they expire. So yeah, I think this version of the flamethrower looks much better than before, and if you also feel like that, then you can leave a like to this video to let my girlfriend know that she did a very good job here with the flamethrower. And before I forget, we actually implemented also the small dagger, which is just slashing a little bit the enemies. We're gonna also add a secondary ability for this one, but this you're gonna see in one of the next videos where we're gonna be doing more weapons and more secondary abilities, and we would really appreciate it if you would leave a like on this video, subscribe to the channel to not miss out on any of the tutorials or devlogs that are gonna be coming up, and leave a comment for improvements you wanna see in the future, and let us know in the comments below what you think of the idea of showing different kinds of content additionally to the devlogs, like for example the top 10s of the assets that exist on itch.io which are free or paid to use, or assets we see on other locations like for example the open game assets. So devlogs on, see you in the next one. Bye!